I want my men, I want my ship, and I want you to... Shogun, starring Cosmo Jarvis, Anna Sawai, Tadanobu Asano, Hiroyuki Sanada, and more, is about a mysterious European ship that is found marooned in the nearby fishing village. Lord Yoshi Toranaga discovers secrets that could tip the scale of powers and devastate his enemies. So I obviously just finished watching Shogun, and this was one of the biggest surprises in TV for me ever. I am not really the biggest TV watcher. Like, you'll see me do a few reviews every single year, but there's usually not that many TV shows that I'm going to be keen to watch. And I had seen a trailer for this show, and I thought, oh, that looks cool. I didn't really think too much of it. And then I sat down, really rewatched the trailer, and I said, oh, this is a period piece TV show. How the hell did this get greenlit in 2024? Because the budget for this show had to be absolutely insane. If it wasn't insane, then they did a hell of a job making what they had work, because this show looks incredible, and I am just so surprised that we got something like it in 2024, but I'm so glad that we did, because it is one of the best shows that I've ever seen. Now, I haven't read the book, so I don't know how accurate it is to the book, but to me, that doesn't really matter too much, because this show just stands on its own as its own thing. But besides the obvious of how well they were able to use this budget and just make this entire show look so good, the sets feel so real, everything about it makes you feel like you were in Japan during this time, and it just does a phenomenal job at illustrating the time period and all of the conflict and everything that's going on in it. It's a very Game of Thrones like feel. Everybody's going to be saying that, but Game of Thrones has all of these big massive battles, whereas this show, it's just a lot of political maneuvering and political games, whereas the fighting and all of that doesn't really show up too much. Cosmo Jarvis and Anna Sawai, their chemistry together is insane. The 9th episode specifically is just so well done. It just encapsulates everything that their relationship has been up to that point, and their competing ideologies. And I'm going to get into spoilers in this, so if you haven't seen Shogun, go watch it, because it's an absolutely amazing show. Their relationship progression to episode 9, where she tries to kill herself, and their competing ideologies, him saying how they don't value life whatsoever, and how she's talking about how she has to stay loyal, and loyalty to her lord is so much more, and that there is purpose in life and death, and that's just something that he can't see. It's just so well done, so well illustrated. And something that I really realized in the 10th episode is that this show kept alive the people who changed, and it killed the people who didn't change. So I think that Blackthorn, very much so in that last episode where he tries to kill himself as well in front of Lord Toranaga to save the people in the village from getting killed, because he knows that his ship was sunk by Mariko, shows how he is now willing to give his life to something else, and how he realizes the point of death and how valuable it can be. Whereas before, he saw the Japanese people, how they would either kill themselves or sacrifice themselves, and he didn't understand it. But come the end of the season, he did, and he was able to survive because of that. Whereas Kashigi didn't change who he was as a person, and was always just a massive piece of shit, flipping sides between the entire show, and he didn't change who he was as a person, and that got him killed in the end. Ishido, it's left up to interpretation, which is another thing that I really like about this show, is that it didn't really have that big final battle, and the subversion of our expectations in that final episode, where you don't get the final battle. And Toranaga says that Mariko basically already executed Crimson Sky by going to the castle and calling Usami's bluff, basically saying, I know you're sick of Ishido's shit, because Ishido is another character that doesn't change. He's so set in his ways. He's so set in trying to kill Toranaga. And Mariko and Toranaga call his bluff and get Usami to basically say that she's going to betray him. And you don't ever see the final fight. You don't see it commence. But Toranaga says, in a month's time, this fight's going to happen, and I'm going to win, because Crimson Sky was already executed by Mariko, and like I said, it's just a bunch of political maneuvering, and it's so well done, it's so well orchestrated, and again, it just shows you the progression of all of these characters from where they started in this show. Some of them didn't change. Mariko didn't even really change that much. She was so willing to die and sacrifice herself and so set in her ways, and she eventually did it. The type of ambiguity that this ending really gives you, because again, you don't really see that final fight that everybody was probably really wanting. I really enjoyed that because, again, it just subverts your expectations and it does something that you don't think is going to happen, but it still really, really, really works for the show. This was all really just about political maneuvers. I really like the episode where Toranaga goes to visit his stepbrother or brother, I forget how they put it, but he goes to visit his brother, and the betrayal there I thought was really well done. That episode was great. The only really big complaints that I have is that I think it was the 6th episode, whenever Cosmo Jarvis Blackthorn, he goes to a brothel and they spend like 30 minutes there. I didn't really care too much for that episode. I felt like that episode was by far the weakest. It was still a fine episode. It was just definitely the weakest in the entire show because it was trying to illustrate the changes in the relationship in Mariko and Blackthorn, their relationship together. But I think that had been done really well throughout other episodes, and the love triangle that was created between Mariko, her actual husband, and Blackthorn. But because this is a Game of Thrones like show and there are so many characters, there is a level of confusion whenever you're watching it. It's definitely a show that I'm going to have to go back and rewatch, and I'm going to love rewatching it because it's a great show, but I feel like there are some things that I probably missed because of how many characters there are and the language barrier of having to read everything. It just makes the processing of the entire show at least a little bit slower, and they really introduce a lot of characters really, really quick in those first few episodes, and it takes you a bit to get on the train and really figure out where you're headed. So this is definitely a show that you have to be locked into, you definitely have to be paying attention to, and for some people that might be a turnoff for it. For me, completely fine because, again, it's phenomenal. I loved every single second of this show. So let me know what you thought of Shogun down in the comments below. I'd probably give it a solid 4.5 out of 5 stars. Link to follow me over on my Letterboxd down in the description below. Make sure to follow us over on Twitter as well. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff, and we will see you in the next movie or TV review.